Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the show Let's Talk with Devsurabhee. I have with me a very distinguished person, Mr. Rajiv Tyagi. He is a former fighter pilot from the Indian Air Force, and he has a long list of introduction, which I will now ask him to give about himself because I don't think I know everything. So, over to you.
Okay. Hi, good evening.
Hi.
My name is Rajiv Tyagi. I'm an erstwhile fighter pilot from the Indian Air Force. And I used to fly MiG-21 aircraft. After I left the Air Force early, and I now design and build devices for industrial and military applications. I also develop certain devices for the Air Force. And I'm now engaged in academics and with engineering students and engineering colleges.
Okay. Thank you so much for giving us your interesting introduction. So you've had quite the journey being in the armed forces. Now you're in business with the armed forces. You're involved with students. And just to tell our viewers, Mr. Rajiv Tyagi is quite the phenomenon on social media. He has 95,255 followers on his Facebook profile. So is
Oh,
whatever.
I didn't know that.
So people actually follow what he says, and it's like within minutes he has like so many views, so many likes, and that's how I came across him. And so let's start with our interview, Mr. Tyagi. The first question and the main question of today's segment, the recent face off with China, whatever has happened, we've seen a lot of back and forth, a lot of statements made by the government, the deafening silence in between, and then the backtracking, and to top it off, the cherry on the cake, the statement from Mr. Modi. So I want to know, since you're from the armed forces, what's your analysis as somebody who has been in the armed forces before?
I think in all of this, the more important thing, yes, all of us know that China intruded into the area that was being occupied till now by India. There is no doubt about that. China intruded into that area. China occupied the heights around the road which leads to the CHN glacier. And once you occupy the heights, you have virtual control over that area. So there is no doubt about the fact that the Chinese intruded upon an area which earlier was occupied by India. There is no doubt about the fact that they occupied the heights of that area. The more disturbing thing is how our government reacted to it. At a time like this, when the whole nation is under an attack by an adversary, it is important for the government to take what we have seen is various organs, including the Prime Minister himself, giving statements which very easily have been shown to be untruths. This is no longer the kind of time when propaganda can be spread without without untruths getting caught. There is information leaking out from where the action is. Everyone has a smartphone today. The internet is ubiquitous. So it is pretty impossible for big brother governments to actually control or shut off the valve for news. And when citizens catch their own government lying to them, it gives a very wrong impression of the government. Not only that, it also creates an atmosphere where all kinds of rumors are spread, all kinds of untruths take place, and we know this kind of thing is dangerous for our country. And what we're seeing here is that For example, lives of soldiers is also being sought to be politicized just because we have an election in one state. And it happens that there were soldiers from that state who done action. And we have the senior most politician in our polity who advantage of the origin of soldiers out of to a state, and our prime minister completely, taking advantage, political advantage of that. This is a shameful state of affairs. I don't. This is the kind of way that anybody should be treating their own nation.
Hello?
Yes, I think I had lost you for a while. You're back again.
Yes. So my signal is a bit unstable. But yes, coming back to the point that you were making, that this sort of behavior is not expected from the government, because just because you have elections in Bihar that are about to happen, now suddenly there's a Bihar regiment that has lost lives in that particular face-off with China. So it seems like a very dirty trick, uh, and some 23 people losing their lives is something that is irreversible. It's a loss for their families and so many people around them. um, is it justified for, बोलते ना आहुति देना जानों की, just to play politics? Because as a human being it is unacceptable for me. So what would you say to that?
Well, the first thing is that politics is politics, but it is certainly completely unacceptable for politics to be played on dead bodies, and especially politics to be played on the armed forces. This government, throughout its tenure, has played the politics of polarization. And but to start polarizing the armed forces, I think, is one of the most dangerous things that any politician or any government can hope to do. And I completely condemn this. And I think no one in government or no one in the opposition should be politicizing the armed forces.
Absolutely. So coming to the second important aspect, an offshoot from what we previously discussed, um, this is a common phenomenon that we see with the the disposition of the day and their overzealous followers, that anything you say about the armed forces you're treated like an anti-national if you talk about the drawbacks of the armed forces, and they readily use the cover of armed forces to whitewash their fake nationalism in a way. So what do you say to this phenomenon? And yeah, so what is your observation about this particular aspect?
You see, somebody has said that nationalists consume patriots during wars. And that is what we are watching, and that is what is happening to India today. Um, in the name of politics, we are lying to our own countrymen. We are playing politics over dead bodies. And the worst thing that has happened is uh, in all this confusion on social media, you will also get to see people um, decrying the Bihar regiment or abusing the Bihar regiment. It became so bad that my friend, Major General Neeraj Bali, had to actually come online and give an explanation as to how many medals of valor the Bihar regiments have won before Indian independence and after Indian independence. to explain the kind of filth that is floating around on social media. So all of this has happened only because the government is encouraging this sort of behavior online, and I think the government should completely desist from playing politics with dead bodies and playing politics with the armed forces. It is a
Absolutely,
very, very dangerous situation.
because this sort of behavior is completely unbridled, unchecked. It's the sort of toxicity that is feeding into our people's fear, and so much that is you know it doesn't have any fundamental or a strong base, and they use it to attack other people. Like an example for our viewers, that recently, I don't want to take the person's name, but a person from the armed forces, he passed away, and he had a Hindu name, but he was a practicing Christian, so he asked his last rites to be done in the Christian way. So the BJP bhakts went to the extent of attacking and calling this person names, and calling him a rice bag convert and this and that, and pretty horrible. So, Mr. Tyagi, what do you say to this? Like, they use the armed forces as like a medal of honor as patriots, but they don't desist in turning around and kind of bad mouthing the same armed forces that they so easily use.
Yes, you see, there are these hordes of completely illiterate, violent Indians who are being driven by someone behind the scenes, and they will go and they are just consumed with hatred. They can abuse armed forces veterans, they can abuse political veterans, 25-year-olds will abuse 70-year-olds. Absolutely no holds barred on social media any longer. And we can see there is a concerted effort from a particular direction to move these hordes of these people to abuse anything and everything that appears to them to not follow their ideology, maybe, or their way of life, or what they think about how India should be. This is like I said earlier, it is becoming extremely dangerous. And if the politician today wants to win votes by destroying the nation, I don't know in which direction we're going.
Absolutely. So I would like to veer off in another direction and ask you, since you have such a large following on social media, what has been your experience? You're from the armed forces, and I also have, read some comments which are very bad in taste towards you. So how do you deal with this sort of behavior?
Well, there's nothing really to deal with this kind of a behavior. I do not block anyone from my wall or from visiting my wall on Facebook. It is my wall. I comment. I do not allow anyone else to post on my wall, but everyone is welcome to come and comment on my posts. However, the abusive hordes I will not stand for, and anyone who comes and starts abusing other people on my wall or abuses me, I still take a lot of that. But if abuse is the only output from a visitor on my wall, then blocking is the only way out. But otherwise, I allow people of all ideologies to visit my wall and to comment and discuss, as long as they would be commenting and discussing. The moment they turn abusive, I think it's time to shut the valve off and throw them out.
Absolutely. So I'll come to the last question that I wanted to address with you this on this segment. We've recently seen that the head of the armed forces, so the Tri Command that is there, Mr. Rawat, to name the person in question. Um, in the past, as somebody who's young, I'm in my 20s. In the past, whoever has held that position held a lot of respect, and no matter what was the political power of the day, the army was looked upon as a force that was independent and it had its own voice, and it would not toe anybody's line, especially not the leader. So what do you say now that we see the toxicity even reflecting in the armed forces?
It's most unfortunate. But first of all, I must correct you. You cannot address him as Mr. Rawat. That is General Rawat. So
My apologies.
General Rawat is our CDS, Chief of Defense Staff.
Hmm.
It's most unfortunate that since this government has come to power, people in the armed forces are also becoming very loose with the use of their tongue, and everybody seems to feel that they're free to make political statements. It is extremely wrong for anyone in the armed forces to be making political statements. And I think they should all desist from doing this kind of thing. And it is the code of the armed forces not to give political statements. And I think if anyone is doing this kind of stuff, they're doing great damage to the whole nation.
Absolutely. And so thank you so much for sharing your views with us, Mr. Tyagi. It has been an immense pleasure to have you on this segment. And we look forward to having you a lot more on the show. And to our viewers, if you want to seek content and writings, videos from Mr. Tyagi, he is completely it's the sort of person who does not mince words. So if that is up your alley and you like reading such stuff, please do visit his profile and follow him, because you will not be disappointed if you like that kind of thing. So thank you so much, Mr. Tyagi, once again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on your program. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
You too, sir.